6:15, let's open the meeting, call order. Roll call, Carl Kaminsky.
Present.
Mr. Kunkel.
Here.
Mr. Reiner.
Here.
Mr. Sager.
Here.
Mr. Scala.
Present.
Mr. Bergen.
Here.
And here, we'll call the order. Motion for the minutes.
Move.
Moved by Scala, second by Kaminsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public comment, we got Zeke.
Zeke Nichols, Hebron Township Highway Commissioner. Just wondering what the update is on Manicure Road Bridge and how that's coming along.
Okay.
Executive report, okay?
We'll answer that real quick, but we'll.
Things are progressing pretty nicely. Right now, we fine-tuned the engineer's estimate a little bit. We're looking at about $270,000 for the project. We threw out a contingency, so we're sitting at around $320,000 for the construction contingency. We're planning on doing a May 8th bid opening. We just received the pre-final plans yesterday, so we're going to do a couple weeks review period on those, and hopefully then we'll still have a fall start for the project this year.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else like to say public comment that didn't sign up?
Well, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hi. My name is Heather Cupso. I live on Cary Road in Algonquin. I was here a few months ago. I recognize the faces. To talk about the speeding problem on this section of road. So we're looking at Cary Road between Maine and Maine, which sounds magic, but it's not. So what's happening here is that there's a large speeding problem. I'll quickly go over the numbers that I went through a couple months ago. This is information that was gathered by the Department of Transportation and by the Henry County Sheriff's Department. So on this stretch of road, about 32,000 cars per week. 80% are going 45 and over. 40% are going over 50, with regular 60 plus, 70 plus miles an hour going down this road. It's 30 miles per hour on this piece of road. I think because between Maine and Maine, this is a 4-mile strip of road with no stops, people kind of feel free, almost treat it like a highway. Unfortunately, this is not a highway. It's not even a regular county road. It is all residential. And when I say residential, what I mean is when you go out your door, you go across the road to get your mail, which everybody on this piece of road has to go out onto the road to get their mail. You've got between your mailbox and the lane less than 2 feet to stand. So you're standing there trying to get your mail, and you've got people whizzing by, most people whizzing by over 50 miles per hour. Not a safe situation. The McHenry County Sheriff, who I've spoken to, agrees that this is an extraordinarily dangerous piece of road. We talked about last time, I talked to the Department of Transportation, that it needs to be enforced, but unfortunately, the police can't be there 24 hours a day. Although they do agree that it would be monetarily easy to make a lot of money on this piece of road because they can sit and write tickets all day long. So what I would like to request today, since nothing has changed, there were speed signs that were put up. The northbound one has not been working for 3 months or so, so there's not as much information right now that we have, but the latest before the sign went down is that the numbers aren't changing. It's still about the same as far as how many cars use this road and this unfortunate amount of speed that is happening there. So what I'd like to request is that this gets put on the actual agenda so that we can have some back and forth discussion to try to make this strip of road a little bit safer.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, before we get too far on, we have one of our, on our consent agenda, 5.2. We were going to hold that today because we were not ready to proceed from just some other information that's needed.
So would you like, when we get to that area, do you want me to make a motion to table that or postpone it, or?
Yeah, let's postpone.
Okay, so when we get to there, we can do that.
Yes. All right, member comments, anybody? Quiet bunch. Okay, we're down to the routine consent agenda. Mr. Scala.
So I'll hold 5-2.
All right, thank you. To discuss that?
It's on the agenda, so.
Huh?
What are we talking about, Adam? Nobody went?
Well, it looks to me
Yeah,
like.
Mr. Scala went down 15-1 last night.
I'm not saying that.
Well, it just looks to me that there was recommended no changes.
No, there was one that was.
What?
One.
For
Pioneer.
Pioneer.
Pioneer Road.
Two other sections were not recommended.
Well, Pioneer, it looks like it was proposed maximum speed limit, new limit with no change either. Is what I'm reading.
Right, one is being brought forward for your consideration.
Okay.
We've been asked in the past to provide the other ones.
Okay, going once, going
I
twice.
do support this. I think it's the right thing to do. And the reason I do is because there is kind of an abrupt change. I think it would be better to have a more gradual change on that than the current change, because it goes from, I think, 40 to 50, if I'm thinking about the area correctly.
It does walk down though. It walks all the way down to 35 by the time you hit 62 in Algonquin. It
Yeah, it's
goes,
going the other way, right?
yeah, but it goes up to 50 and then walks back down, except when you reach Rackow Road there.
Yeah.
But there's
From
nothing on
Gillette
that stretch
right
but
to,
dodging airplanes. That's all there is. And I've polled constituents and nobody wants that slowed down to that section. There's nothing out there but dirt.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, Virginia to Raycow, that's between Jet Air
Yeah.
and Nick's Pizza. But still, that's all, there's maybe two driveways on the whole stretch though.
And by the time you pull away from Rackow Road to get to Virginia, you either hit the light or you hit the turn lane. There's not enough time, unless you're drag racing, there's no time to achieve more than 35 miles an hour there.
I kind of concur, man. Kind of Mr. Scala on this one.
I'm definitely on Mr. Scala's camp with this one.
Man, we might have a 3 to 15.
I'm always willing to take in other people.
There's nothing there, Brian.
I just want to make sure that I understand where we're talking about, because I understood that we were talking about from Rackow Road to Virginia Road, right?
Right.
Right, but all of Pyeth goes from 35 and 62, walks up to 50, and then back down to 35 by the time you hit Virginia.
Yeah, this is all conservation or whatever.
Is it, the current speed limit is 45, right?
Correct. That portion right there it is, yes.
Right,
And then it drops to 35 after Virginia.
right.
But unless you have the luck of the gods with the traffic lights there, there's no way you can achieve that speed.
I mean, there's not a bike trail there, there's nothing there to indicate to me.
And they just widen that intersection huge
Yeah.
when you make the cross.
I take that road every day, I don't see it.
Okay,
Okay, I
so,
won't, I'm not going to push that at the moment.
Yeah.
Right there.
So,
all right, so then,
That just goes by.
everybody, are you okay with this, just not moving forward on this one? I'm just kind of polling everybody, because I
I'm okay with that.
didn't put in an official resolution or anything.
for the moment,
Okay. All right, so then that one is, won't move forward. New business staff recognition.
All right, we have our employee of the quarter, and Jeremy Stoll will introduce our quarter number 1 employee.
All right, good morning, everyone. I am proud to recognize our engineering technician, Cage Jennings, as Employee of the Quarter for the first quarter of 2024. Over the last few months, Cage has assisted the Township Highway Commissioners by providing resurfacing recommendations, followed by putting together engineered estimates and proposals for 13 of our 17 townships here in McHenry County. As part of this rating, he's provided visuals and reasonings for the score that included the amount of transverse longitudinal block, alligator, cracking that was present, as well as raveling, flushing, rutting, and patching that existed. To further justify his engineer's estimates, he also included 2023 data for each highway commissioner to see which showed the high, the low, and average unit price for each pay item. Another accomplishment worth noting is, as construction engineers, though a lot of our training comes through mentorship and getting our hands dirty in the field, another very important aspect is the certification process and the efforts it takes for us to acquire those credentials, specifically through Lakeland College classes. Cage proudly passed in early February and brings a whole new skill set to the team, the PCC Level 1 class, which to me is as hard as taking the professional engineer's license. Other projects Cage has been involved in heavily in this first quarter have been handling and closing out the largest guardrail maintenance contract since its inception in 2015. With an average of nearly 3 guardrail hits and repairs per month this past quarter, by far the busiest amount we have ever had, and concluding the largest repair contract in our fiscal year. Cage takes a thankless job and ensures that the public safety is of utmost importance to our motoring public by making sure these repairs are top priority when an accident is reported. All of this information provides excellent comprehensive records for our database. Cage also plays a pivotal role in the construction section when it comes to MFT accounting. He handles more active section numbers than anyone else here at the DOT, and when it involves a substantial amount of financial responsibility. In preparation for these audits that we have, Cage works with Justin, myself, and the finance team to perform internal audits to make sure our numbers are balanced and tracked accurately to the penny before even an audit comes our way from IDOT. He helps continue to keep our expenditures balanced to the penny in-house with IDOT's records. Cage takes absolute pride in all the projects he works on. His capabilities are no surprise because of the extensive banking experience he brought into the engineering industry, which has been a major asset. We are very proud and fortunate to have a team player like Cage, who always adds a great laugh to any situation. Be ready for the next best me when it comes to an unforgettable moment. Therefore, it is my honor to announce Cage as the Employee of the Quarter for the first quarter of 2024. Please take a moment to congratulate Cage on this amazing accomplishment.
Any jokes?
Not today.
They don't come when I expect them to.
Job well done.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
That's it, sir.
Business, McHenry County News 2050 plan updates.
So included in the packet was a very nice executive summary that Scott gave you on this. And at this point, I will turn it over to the Assistant Director of Transportation to give an update on the long-range transportation plan.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to give a second update. We gave an update last month, more of a review of where we've been. This is going to be some new information, and I've actually brought our consultant team here today to kind of help me with this presentation. So everybody should know Jeff Young with HDR. Jeff is the project manager working on this project, along with Jason Harvey from HDR as well. So Jeff, Jason, and I, we're going to sort of tag team this presentation together. I want some discussion, so please jump in if you have questions along the way. I don't want to. Sorry. But again, this is what we're going to go over today: vision goals, strategies, safety, congestion, everything that we talked about last time, plus some more information that you'll see here today. So again, just a review. Just because I feel like we should always kind of go back to square one. What are our 5 goals? Our 5 goals are Vision Zero, safety for all users, which means 0 fatalities on our road system by the year 2050. Complete and connected multimodal network, efficient movement of people and goods, mobility and accessibility for all, and protected environmental resources. These are sort of what steered the entire planning process, and these were generated from what we heard from the public. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeff. He's going to go over some of the strategies that we use to address some of those concerns.
Thanks, Scott. So as Scott presented last month and throughout the duration of this project, we engaged with a lot of public stakeholders, communities, stakeholder events were either pop-up or online, a lot of interaction with that, a couple public meetings. And from those interactions, and then looking at a lot of the data as well, crash, traffic, and land use and things like that, we developed these strategies for 3 key areas that were really clicked with the public. Safety, vehicle travel, and freight. And you'll see some of these strategies as we get into the details and talk about roadways and pads and bikes and so forth. You'll see some strategies are common between the 3 key areas, because some of these strategies can serve a multiple purpose to address safety as well as mobility. When we first look at corridor safety improvements, we looked at the crash statistics over the last 5 years in the county. And that's not just on the county network, it's for all roads within McHenry County. And interesting enough, the largest area for fatalities, we started to do a lot of statistical analysis, and the majority of the fatalities, vehicle fatalities, are occurring in the rural areas. And of those fatalities, the majority of them are occurring with fixed objects. So when we look at that information, what is that telling us? So that's vehicles leaving the road, and when they do, they're either traveling at a high rate of speed, or they don't have enough area when they leave the road to recover their vehicle. So that's narrow shoulders, steep ditches, things like that. So using that statistical information, we then develop our strategies. So when we look at the safety strategies, we look at lighting. There's a lot of nighttime crashes at intersections, so we recommend lighting. Now, that's not to say when you see these corridors, you're going to implement roadway lighting along the entire corridor. These are strategies that can be used in certain areas on a corridor, whether it's at intersections or more urbanized or rural areas. So some of the other key strategies are rumble strips, roundabouts to address safety at intersections, and then intersection warning, advanced warning. And these are things that can be taken as initial steps. So when we look at the one on the bottom left, pointing out specifically, say, something at the Heartland Hughes Route 14 intersection, a lot of effort was done at that intersection to try to implement some low-cost strategies initially, but unfortunately, there kept being crashes there. And so IDOT has taken that project to the next step, and they're looking to implement a roundabout.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Jump
So
right
what's
in.
the numbers? I see 4, I see 10, I see 9, I see, what are those? What
So
are
in the report, there's a list of corridors. So when you look
Okay,
at,
so that's just corresponding to the, it's not like that's the number of people killed with.
No.
Okay.
yeah,
And I'll point out too, Jeff pointed out 14 in Heartland, state's working on a project there. But you'll also notice that we've got quite a few intersection projects identified on this map that you all approved the phase 1 starting on 3 of those intersections. So Maple and Coral, Spring Grove and Miller, and Alden O'Brien, I think, was the 3rd one. So all of those are called out on this map as well as high crash locations we're going to take a look at.
so again, as we looked at the entire county system, specifically to the folks in this room, the county routes that are showing from a corridor standpoint, Scott talked about those intersections, the corridors that are popping from a safety need are Randall Road, and which is going to be addressed with the county's upcoming project to complete that improvement. But then River and Pyatt, those are the next 2 corridors on the hierarchy in terms of crashes on a corridor system on the county's network. Any questions on safety before I move forward? So congestion and improve reliability. So congestion we can think of very easily. We drive and you come up to a red light, there's a long backup, it might take you a couple light changes to get through the intersection. Obviously, we can relate to that, that's congestion. Reliability is something that is another way we can look at the roadway network in terms of how reliable, how much can you entrust that to go from point A to point B, it's going to be the same day in and day out. The example I use is Route 14 between Woodstock and Crystal Lake. So flashback 10 years ago or so, think about it before it was widened to what it is now, 4 lanes. And so if you were going to travel between Woodstock and Crystal Lake, you'd have to flip a coin. Is it going to take you 20, 30, 40 minutes? You know, depends if I can find a bus or a front movement. I have no idea. Very unreliable. So we ended up developing a reliability index based on the free flow speed and then the travel speed using data that's out there in terms of Google and other big data information that's being collected through cell phone data. And we put together a reliability index. And of that, you can see we've got 3 colors. It's hard to tell a little bit with this one. Yeah. So the reddish color are corridors that are showing up from a roadway travel as well as safety. There's 2 light green segments, 47 more or less through Woodstock and then all the way down to Huntley as well as Illinois 31. So those 2 are a lighter green, if you can pick it out. Those are being recommended for add lanes. And those are 2 state projects that the state is actually moving forward with. The darker green ones, such as US 12, or actually 173, a segment of US 12, 176 through the eastern half of the county, and then portions of Algonquin Road and then Randall Road are being talked about in terms of that reliability. And so it's not that they necessarily need to be adding lanes, so like take 176 for example. We're not saying it needs to be widened to 4 lanes. But as you start to do a project, just as 41 and 31 were started years ago by the state, you start to evaluate what are some techniques that we can do. So again, our strategies for these corridors are adding travel lanes as we reconstruct and bringing things up to current standards, turn lanes at intersections, and then roundabouts as well is another great technique that can be used to address issues on these corridors. And again, it's not one size fits all. Just as with the safety strategies, as you start projects, you identify where are areas where there may be a congestion problem that needs additional travel lanes, but on that same corridor, you might not need that throughout the entire corridor. So then you implement different strategies throughout that segment that you're evaluating.
I want to go back, before we get to your question, Mike, I want to go back to one thing Jeff mentioned. Use the example of US 14 being between Crystal Lake and Woodstock, and the lack of reliability before the state widened that project. Why is reliability an important measure that we used to look at? It's because when you don't know if your trip's going to take 25 minutes or 45 minutes, how much time do you budget? 45, right? If you need to be somewhere, you're not going to just hope on a prayer that you're going to get there in 25 minutes. You're going to leave early, which impacts your day-to-day life, right? So in the planning world, reliability is the most important metric we look at when it comes to corridors and their efficient movement. Is the reliability or lack thereof. So that's, again, the punchline that Jeff sort of left out there. So. Moving on, Mike, you had a question, sorry.
So go back to your other map here. So when I look at this and I look at the issues that we're having here, it seems like 90% are state routes versus our own roads and stuff. I mean, yes, we provide this data to the state to try and give them guidance and help them along in their journey to do things for state highways, but I mean, we only control 10% of what's sitting on this map.
Correct, yes. And it's important to know that most of the ADT is on the state system, right? So most of us spend the majority of our time on the state system. We're not on the county system or the local system. The state system is what most people think about when they're thinking about their commutes and their day-to-day operations. And so it makes sense that most of these are going to be state routes. And it's similar to how it was in the 2040 plan as well. The 2040 plan, I really took a really good look at the state system, and a lot of these same recommendations were found 10 years ago in that plan. So yeah, you're spot on, Mike. The state system is where a lot of these improvements are necessary, not on the county system. There will be spot locations. You see Algonquin Road is a good example where there is a reliability challenge today on 62 Algonquin Road, but most of it is on the state system. But good question.
And you want to expand on that too, from you mentioned the 2040 plan. IDOT has come pretty far that we now have the 47 and 31 projects that are getting closer to construction.
Yeah, 47, 176 is going to be under construction this year, 47 in Woodstock later this year or next. So this, and then 31 is going to be shortly thereafter, probably 25, 26 timeframe. So a lot of these projects are either being addressed by the state today or will be addressed very shortly by the state of Illinois. And that's really thanks to the capital plan they passed in 2019. Without the Rebuild Illinois capital plan and the increase in MFT, none of this work would be going on today. The state would still be, dilly-dallying in a lot of these projects. So. Lastly, on the road system, we want to talk about freight and bridges, right? So we talked about safety, we talked about congestion, reliability. Freight and bridges, we felt deserved its own slide, its own category in this plan. And so what do we mean by freight? You know, when you think of McHenry County, freight's not necessarily something that jumps to mind. It is maybe in Will County, but out here it's less of an issue. However, there are locations in McHenry County, and I know our 2050 comp plan that P&D is doing right now, they're trying to identify where are the right locations to look to increase, employment opportunities, potentially increasing the amount of freight traffic in McHenry County. And so part of that they're looking at is the 2390 interchange location. And so along with that type of employment and associated freight traffic, you're going to need to look at, can the road network in that area accommodate this new growth? And so we see a couple projects we identified in the southwest part of the county, upgrading existing facilities. So 21 is Harmony Road between 23 and 20, which is a county road, and then 20, I believe, is Coral Road, which is another county road in the southeast there. So just making sure that freight traffic is able to use these roads to get around that area efficiently. And it could include shoulder widening travel lane, adding travel lanes, widening travel lanes, increasing intersection size so that these large vehicles can turn efficiently. And then bridges. We didn't include the bridges on this map here, but I feel like we've talked a lot about bridges at this committee already. We all know the importance of making sure our bridges are in good condition on the county system and the local system. And our plan also is talking about that importance as well. So that sort of goes through a lot of our roadway recommendations. If you put it all together and you get a map like this, which I did include in your packet, so you can take a look at it, maybe you can zoom in a little bit better in your packet. But this map kind of tries to consolidate everything we just talked about into one map. It shows the safety improvement locations, the congestion, vehicle travel locations, as well as the freight recommendations. It gets a little tough to see at this scale, but I think once you see it in a bigger format, it makes a lot more sense. Any questions before I move on? Okay, now, we talked about stuff that is necessary today. A lot of this stuff that you see here, there's an existing need on the system, whether it's safety, congestion, or freight, today. We wanted to also include in this long-range plan, since we're looking out 30 years, what are the corridors of the future that we need to start preparing for? Maybe these are new alignments, maybe they're bypass routes or new river crossings, things that, again, they're not there today, but maybe in 20 years that they will be necessary to accommodate the traffic patterns. So that's what this slide is trying to show. So what you see here in green are these corridors, future corridors for expansion, and in the call-out boxes, whenever you see this symbol, it's the McHenry County 2040 plan symbol. Those were all projects that were included in the 2040 plan. So these are carried over into this plan. They're still relevant today. We still feel like they're necessary to include in this plan, but they're a little further out than some of these type of projects that are more near-term projects. So we have everything here from 2 new Fox River crossings, one up north of the city of McHenry, one north of the village of Algonquin. Those would likely have to be tolled facilities in order to be part of the financing pie, right? We probably couldn't afford to take on a project of that scale without looking at tolling as an option. We've got two new roadway extension projects. I'm talking about the Acme Road extension, which is, currently terminates at Halligus Road. Extending that out to 47 has always been part of the county's long-range plans. And then Lakewood Road extension. Currently, Lakewood Road terminates just south of Algonquin Road. Extending that down to Huntley Dundee Road down in Kane County could be, and likely will be necessary in the future. There's been a lot of talk about, west of 47 in the Huntley area, what's necessary out there, whether it's the Algonquin Road extension or a mixture of other type of road improvements. So what we have here is, Algonquin Road and Main Street extension from 47 to west to Harmony Road. But we also talk about Reed Road and how do we get traffic using these other village roads. Reed Road is not a county road. It's maintained and is under the jurisdiction of the village of Huntley. But how can we extend Reed Road potentially to take pressure off of the county system in that area? And then lastly, we also talk about a lot of the bypass of Marengo. So again, accommodating future growth in that interchange location. How do we avoid a lot of especially the truck traffic, not having to go through downtown Marengo if they have other alternative routes to get east and west? These are all sort of, again, corridors that are a little further out, but we feel were necessary to include. So I wanted to stop, and I know these are sort of, you may not know much about these projects, but I wanted to have some discussion about these if you feel like these are important priorities that we need to highlight in the plan, or if they are just something that we can include, but maybe aren't as high priorities for this committee. So I just wanted to throw that question out there for everybody to consider.
Well, I mean, I can say number 7, 1, and 2 would greatly help travel off of 47, off of Algonquin Road, and potentially off of Main Street, which, I mean, that's something that's been talked about for forever. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of issues there.
There is, yeah.
I mean, and because it all focuses around the light with the railroad tracks in town, and that's how everyone has to go through. So any kind of relief you can give to that so that people don't have to go through that intersection would be great. Because even though it was improved, it's still, during rush hour, it can take 3 cycles to get through that.
To flush, yeah.
Yeah, and when you're going east-west, it can take 4 or 5 cycles to get through.
Yeah.
And again, it's a state road, but these are things that we could be doing on our own roads to help alleviate that issue.
For many years, I think we thought of the problems down in that area as solved by the Algonquin Road extension. If we just extended Algonquin Road over the railroad tracks to connect up with Harmony, we would solve a lot of these problems. And we would solve quite a lot of these problems at the 47 location by doing that. I think today, fast forward to today, I think we're thinking about the problem more as how do we increase the network, the roadway network, to allow people to have not just better access up and down Main Street and Algonquin Road, but also they could potentially use other routes like Reed Road, Coin Station. I mean, there's a network that you could build up in that area so that everybody doesn't have to funnel through a couple county roads to get to where they need to go. And so we're sort of changing how we think about the problem and the potential solutions down in that part of the county.
Well, and to add to Mike's point on that Main Street farm just coming out of town just sold for houses, 108 acres of the first part of that farm.
On the north side there, Jim?
On the north side.
Yeah.
That just sold, and
Yeah.
they got a year left before they take possession of it.
We've had some preliminary conversations with the Village of Huntley about that, so we know that there is plans for residential growth in that area. And I think a lot of these projects make more sense once you start to see growth occurring. Because right now, west of 47, what you're really talking about is the high school. As far as a lot of the traffic generator is high school traffic. But we know that that's not only going to be the generator in the future. There's going to be residential growth in the future west of 47. You're already seeing it off of Reed Road, but even south of the tracks, there's going to be some growth. So thank you for that comment, Mike. We've heard that too from the public.
What you talked about right there, that's good. You're talking that this is like a 30-year plan out.
Yep.
taking a look at number 5, that's a bridge to nowhere. There's no road coming to it and no road going from it.
Well, I appreciate that, Carl. This project, the Eastern McHenry Fox River Crossing,
I know the state owns the property. They tore
Correct.
the house down, but there ain't no road even thought of coming to it or one exiting from it.
and that project, just for everybody's history, that number 5 was a piece of the FAP 420 project, the Lake County 53 extension project that eventually would have been brought up through Lake County into McHenry County and connect up with 12 up in Wisconsin. This was a very, very small piece of that overall project, right? This was the piece of the project that would get people over the river, so they didn't have to go through downtown McHenry. And really, the downtown McHenry, 120-31, where that comes together, that's the bottleneck in this area. And it will continue to be a bottleneck as traffic grows throughout the next 30 years. So again, the whole focus of that project was how do you get people to not even have to go through downtown? If they want to get north-south or from the north to the east.
You're only a quarter, not even a quarter mile from the last bridge, if that.
Yeah, so yeah, and these are all things, and again, that's one that I'd say of all these projects, we probably hear the least about is number 5. And that probably is just indicative of the fact that today, the problem might not be that severe, right? But we have to think more than just today, we got to think 30 years from now. So, thank you for that comment, Bill. And yeah, we realize that one is a little different because there are bridges in the area. You think about the Chapel Hill Road Bridge, you think about
Charles Miller,
Lincoln as well.
Old Bridge.
There's other alternative routes. The one in Algonquin is unique because there isn't really another bridge for unless you go down to 62 or you go north to 14. There's nothing in between. And so potentially that Algonquin project might make more sense, just because of the lack of a network in that area. And that's another project where we own a lot of the right-of-way already. So both of these Fox River crossings, we own 90% plus of the right-of-way that would be necessary to do these projects. Yeah.
But is the question before us, are these worthy to stay on and as 30-year goal projects, or should they be moved up? Is that the question?
I'm looking for the committee's opinion on how much of a priority these projects should be, right? So I think we've heard from the public that they should be in the plan. And we feel like they belong in the plan, but we don't know necessarily what level of priority to put on them. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, I do think that those projects that were previously discussed by Mike should be advanced in terms of priority. I mean, I think that, if we're going to kind of look at a status presentation here of these projects, I think those are much closer to the 20-year cycle than they are the 30-year cycle, if you were, in terms of our planning. So personally, I would like to see those prioritized a little bit higher, I think.
No, thank you for that. Yeah.
I would also be a big proponent of number 4 because that is definitely an Achilles heel for that section crossing the river and through Algonquin. Is just, you talk about cycles, Mike. I mean, that's probably 6 cycles from 3 to 6 in the afternoon.
And keep in mind,
to get through at Algonquin there. And historically, when I was a young kid, that was always stopped by Barrington Hills and an old rich guy named McCarthy. He's passed on since the 80s or 90s, but he always stopped that. And that was always the Achilles heel to get, a quick commute to Crystal Lake, to O'Hare, or Chicago.
But horse and buggies were slow.
That's true. That's true. And you had to forge the river. You had to forge the river. It was hard to do that.
yeah, under the late John Schmidt, the village was very proactive with securing a lot of the right-of-way. Obviously, they haven't secured all the right-of-way that's necessary for that project, but there was some foresight long ago, many decades ago.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
And I will say, John, on that project in Algonquin, we still don't know what level of impact Long Meadow Parkway is going to have on traffic in that area.
Right.
So this would be something that we would take a look at not only after Long Meadow is open, how do traffic patterns change, but also after our Randall project is done. how does that change the pattern of traffic in this area, right? So there's a lot of major projects that are on the cusp of being completed in the next five years or so, that will have an impact on that 62 crossing in Algonquin. And we might find that this northern Algonquin river crossing is just not necessary, after we take a look at the new traffic patterns.
Yeah, and I think something that's gonna impact that too is you were talking historically about 62. That is in IDOT's plan to be widened now.
That's fantastic.
And that I don't know when, but that's all part of what Scott's talking about, where Long Meadow Parkway comes in there with a new signal, where if you go through there, it's already 2 lanes in each direction. That would continue for the entire stretch through Barrington Hills, that's 1 lane in each direction.
But there is some belief too, though, that that section between 25 and Algonquin proper Main Street has been choked off commercially because of the egregious amount of traffic on that road
Oh, absolutely.
throughout the day.
Yeah.
So there is also, beyond the Long Meadow, which of course that's still to be seen, is that going to be a commerce lift for that entire corridor if we have more free flow of traffic, even with Long Meadow there? Because it has stifled that area.
Yeah, I always thought the Long Meadow accommodated only the southbound from there.
And pretty much
You
it's
know.
commute traffic that we're
Yeah.
trying to pull off of that instead of, and hopefully some of the truck traffic too.
Yeah, all good comments. So a lot of
Of
these
course they
are
are.
kind of a your comments confirm our way of thinking too. I mean, a lot of what you said, we've talked about as the project team, and we're, we're sort of on the same boat with a lot of these projects.
Conrad historian.
Anything else we want to talk about with this project?
Well, we haven't talked about 6, but I don't, at the rate Marengo's going with development, it could be 30 years before that's even contemplated.
Potentially, yeah, you're right. Or a big company decides they want to open sooner rather than later, and it could be 10 years, right? We just don't know. And I think we're trying to be proactive, and hopefully, maybe things take longer than what we think, but,
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when we get our 7 million back from Marengo for the change, then I'd be happy to put that 7 million on that.
Wow, that was harsh.
And we haven't talked about the Lakewood Road Extension project too, but that is something that, we've met with Kane County DOT, with the Village of Huntley, and the other municipalities, Algonquin, Lake in the Hills. I still feel like there's a lot of support for that project, both on this side of the county line and on Kane County side, as not only a means to take traffic off of Square Barn, but also to spur residential development in that area. Currently, it's greenfield, there hasn't been really interesting development, but that could be a location that would benefit dramatically from that project too.
Yeah, there's currently discussions going on between the Village of Huntley, Kane County, Gilbert's, Algonquin. I believe we're in Carpentersville, maybe. Do they touch that? Maybe not. About doing a work on Huntley and Kreutzer
Correct.
at that intersection. And then if it comes in at quite the skew there, but depending on how quickly maybe that accelerates the Lakewood Road one also, so that you create that 4th leg on that. Fourth leg of the intersection, it's 3-legged intersection.
So does that that would go through the farm fields right alongside 158 property?
Correct.
Okay.
Just to the west of 158.
Okay.
And importantly, Huntley,
Tourist property.
Huh?
Go through the old nursery. wouldn't it?
Yeah.
and keep in
Oh,
mind,
yeah.
Huntley Dundee Road, which again is a Kane County DOT road on that side of the line, that feeds right in, that's part of Long Meadow. That's part of the Long Meadow corridor, right? So that is Long Meadow as it comes west. So again, traffic patterns, once Long Meadow opens, are gonna change dramatically, and that could be used much more than it is today.
Well, but it doesn't turn into Long Meadow until you get all the way almost down to Randall. So-
Randall's where it turns from Long Meadow to Huntley. And I just looked at my watch and it's 9 o'clock, and I told Jim we'd be done. So I'm gonna try to get to the other stuff that we have here for you. Jason Carvey's gonna help me with some of this
They
stuff.
told me you'd be done in 5 minutes.
I was thinking, that's a long time. I wasn't going to say anything.
Before we started the long-range plan effort, the county, did a great job with the connections plan, which was the bicycle connection plan developed for the county. So we really just built on that. There were a lot of great concepts that came out about kind of connecting the existing bicycle and pedestrian systems that we have out there today. The concepts of an inner loop, a priority loop, and so that project, or that study did a great job of kind of identifying a county-wide network for those connections. And so this was an opportunity to take some of those projects that Scott and Jeff talked about and really incorporate, what are the opportunities when we get into a corridor to maybe continue building those separated type facilities. And so this is really just us making sure that we are, continuing that plan forward.
We've already started moving forward on some of these projects. The Wilmot Road project up in Spring Grove, Fox Lake, that's one that we've already taken the first step. You're going to see a contract come through later this year with that project. So yeah, we're making progress on this plan already.
And then the final piece here, and I think a lot of these concepts are probably similar to those corridors, where some of these are incremental and some of these are maybe more forward-looking. But opportunities to continue building on the success of like MC Ride. So a couple of these you'll see really focus on how can we do a better job of getting people to the existing transit services that we have. The prioritizing the construction of sidewalks near transit stations and bus routes. So you've got, whether it's PACE or Metra, just making sure that, people can get there. You'll see we've got the third one down builds on that. It's partnering with transportation network companies. This would be like an Uber and Lyft. And integrating, integrating an app into providing those services. So like the Ventra card, so that you can kind of travel across all the different, Metra, PACE, MC Ride all together with one app and really integrate those. The fourth bullet down was also kind of a first mile, last mile pilot program where people could, that's always the classic gap in transit services to get to a fixed route, especially in a county like McHenry where, all the development's not necessarily all in one spot. So getting folks to the transit stops. One of the things, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. If we go to the second bullet, the potential for at some point implementing a fixed route type trip between major trip generations for MC Ride. We did see a lot of trips in McHenry, Crystal Lake, and Woodstock, and at some point in the future, it might make sense to kind of identify some version of kind of a triangle connection between those three. And I think we've seen great success if we go to the fifth bullet, extending the service period, working towards more service around the clock as we continue to build on that success of MC Ride. Implementing an income-based pay-as-you-can fare structure for MC Ride. And finally, continue to promote the passenger rail service to Rockford and that partnership that's still moving forward.
And the fare structure issue, that's something that we're seeing, the RTA, that's a high priority in their strategic plan they just completed, is making sure that transit's affordable for people. And they've already taken a big first step working with Metra and Cook County. They're actually giving reduced fare on Metra for SNAP recipients, right? So if you're SNAP eligible, you are now eligible for the reduced fare on Metra, not just seniors, not just people with disabilities, but low-income folks as well. So we're gonna, maybe look to replicate something like that in the future on our Dial Ride system as well.
Yeah, that's a great way to get, with folks with some, travel reliability issues of getting them to jobs. It's good for the economy, good for workers, good for families. So.
Any questions about transit? If not, we'll kind of wrap things up here. Thank you, Jason. Next steps.
I got one question
Yeah,
on that passenger train up into Rockford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the progress on that, of when that would projected to begin?
2027 is what the state is saying. There's a lot of work that needs to happen on the tracks and everything else, so it's a lot of work between now and then, but that's what they're saying now is 27. So what are the next steps? You've seen this sort of graphic before, but again, our long-range plan feeds into our 5-year program. So stuff doesn't make it into the 5-year program unless it's included in our long-range plan, and it's a high priority. So we're gonna look to update our 5-year program as we do every year this summer, and you'll start to see some of those projects work their way into our 5-year program, which then feeds into our annual budget. And so you know that's how you all fit into this, is you see stuff that comes before you that's included in our budget. But I want you all to know that those projects you're approving, they get called out and identified many years before in our long-range plan, and that's kind of the process before they get to construction. Any questions? I went through a lot there, and you guys were great, but I didn't make my 9 o'clock. If you think of questions afterwards, email me, call me. I'm going to bring a draft next month, a draft plan for your review next month, and then hopefully approve it, committee approval in, what would that be, June?
Same month.
Same month?
There's 2 meetings, May 1st and May 29th.
So that's the schedule going forward. So you're going to see an actual hard copy of the plan next month, and go from there. Thank you.
Nicely done, Scott and HDR, Jason and Jeff.
Best presentation we heard all day.
Thank
Giving us historical data.
Hit the light, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I need to back up a little bit, do a little house cleaning, back to this ordinance on 6.1. We need to address that a little bit better. Brian, you suggested.
Yeah, I moved that we postpone that to time indefinite. It is an item for action, so I just moved it to postpone to time indefinite.
I'll second that.
If I just gonna get a win today. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good, right? You gotta do that, I just wanted to. All right.
Take the wins and losses.
Any
No
other
staff reports.
No staff reports.
No?
Okay, no need for executive session either.
No.
I'll move adjourn at 9:08.
Okay, next,
Second?
seconded by Mr. Reiner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next meeting, May 1st, 8:15.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well done.
It stands out every time you do it.
We were talking about how they got so much.